All right, so we just listened to the new Sleep Token album, Even in Arcadia. So now we're going to talk about it a little bit. I'll go into a deeper discussion with my co-host Jordan over here, who knows more about the technical side of music. We'll break it down into 5 sections. We've got general feel, flow and direction, production, weak spots, and track highlights. And then we'll come back around and give you our ratings for our on-the-spot first listen unscripted album review. So, general feel of this, as a Sleep Token fan, I think this is possibly the most consistent album, next to This Place Will Become Your Tune, which is my favorite. This one, very similar to that. It has like the most heavy parts, but spread out, which is the way This Place Will Become Your Tomb was for me, at least. So in a way, it feels like it's like the most digestible for both ends. Like I feel like it, like for like the heavier fans, it's the most digestible because it's has consistent heavy parts. There's only like 2 soft songs, and then a few songs that are like more soft leading, but almost every song outside of those have like heavy guitar work and stuff like that. But also it does lean very much into like the R&B and pop stuff. So I feel for like the lighter Sleep Token fans, the ones that came from, you know, the other side, from the pop side, um it still has that big meat of R&B, while exposing them to the heavy side. So I think it is like the most digestible in that kind of sense, but not in like a bad way of like, you know, like the Our Last Night album that we just listened to. That's like too fucking digestible. So I really like that. Is it their best? I don't know. I don't want to say I don't think so. I would have to. It's prog. Prog for me, you got to listen to it multiple times to really get all of the nuances and stuff. But on the first listen, I will say that it was really good, and also it was like kind of fresh in a way compared to other Sleep Token, because one thing I noticed is the vocal work on here for me sounds very much more grounded. I mean, if you tie it into the lyrics, it makes even more sense. Like it's literally Vessel, the dude, the vocalist, sounding like himself, talking about his life and, you know, the music industry and like that kind of stuff now, as opposed to previous albums where it was like lore and the god and all that stuff. It's more grounded, and I feel like his vocal, it's less peanut buttery, as they like to call it. And so I think that is one big takeaway here. So I think that's one really interesting part. I also like that, again, just like how consistently heavy it was, but it wasn't like aggressively heavy. There was like 2 parts where there's maybe 2 or 3 parts that were very much like Vor. And this one, again, it's kind of more sprinkled out. So again, it's like more digestible. But as being their best, I just really don't know. I would say it's up there. I'd still say I probably better than the first one, their first album. I don't know. But I want to say, like, for example, the last album, Take Me Back to Eden, first half of that album, perfect. First like 6 songs are steady repeats for me. I listen to them all the time. Second half, haven't fucking touched them. Don't even listen to it. So like, I mean, they're good. It's not bad. It's just like, it's, you know, it's fine for me. It doesn't hit the same as the first half of the album. Now, when you take that context, in this, like I said, more consistent, it kind of spreads those highs and lows more evenly. So it's more digestible, which some might have to say it's a bad thing. So I don't know. Jordan will have to probably chime in on this. But yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. Is it's consistently more heavy, but it also, you know, layers in those different elements of the pop and the R&B. Even the synth work is different here for me. A lot of it is kind of like retro. There's like some 8-bit synths and some 16-bit synths. There's some 80s like 808s in there. A lot of little things like that I noticed that I really appreciate. I love that kind of shit. So that helps out a lot because I'm a big synthwave fan. But there's also the token piano that they use a lot too. So there's a lot of diversity in the different sounds that they use here. So I'll stop rambling because I've been on for like 6 minutes now. Jordan, what's your thoughts on the general feel?
Yeah, I feel like this album is very, I don't want to say very different than all the other ones. It seems definitely more personal and more grounded, I feel like. It feels more like kind of like an introspection and kind of like a look back at everything, which I think is kind of nice because a lot of the lyrics, kind of delve into that. It goes along with the theming. The last album was called "Take Me Back to Eden," and then this one's called "Even on Arcadia." So it definitely gives that feeling of like you've been through like the hard shit, you got through it, you're there now, but like you're still thinking back and like kind of not quite like settled in. And so I feel like a lot of the themes and everything goes with that, and it just feels a little bit more grounded, especially in the way that it's not so much about like the lore and all that stuff. So I feel like it's all kind of like purposely done in that way. Just uh, also doing that with like the vocals, like Michael said, where it's a little bit more just real and more just him and not so much a character. So I think, going with all that and then having everything kind of like circle around back to all the themes and be cohesive, it really gives a complete feeling while also kind of, I guess, if you're like a fan of like the heavier Sleep Token, like just maybe like the songs that are more straightforward heavy and stuff like that, I feel like you might be a little bit disappointed in this album, but it's very purposefully done like that, I feel like. So, uh, in a way, I think they're fine with alienating fans and just kind of like keeping, the real ones that are actually in it for like the substance and stuff like that, which once again kind of goes back to the lyrics in some of the songs. So, I think that's all cool.
So flow and direction. So this one's definitely, like I said, it's a little bit different because the other three albums that they have are it's a trilogy, right? It's all based around the god and everything. So the direction here is a little bit different because as we said, it's more grounded and more personal. But and it's talking about even in Arcadia, which while we were looking up, apparently there's a saying. There's a literal saying. I don't know if it's from a book or anything. I'm sure there's billions of Sleep Tokens fans that have already looked into this. But it's even in Arcadia, I am, which is referencing the fact that even in a utopia, uh, death does not escape you, and that's kind of literally kind of like what this is about. Maybe not literally as in death, but uh, maybe like ego death or something like that. Like he's kind of talking more about how he's reached these heights, but he's realizing all the other shit that comes with being big. All the crazy fans and high expectations and all this kind of stuff. So it's different in that way, but it also kind of still talks about a little bit of the lore too. And there's also some my wife was showing me, there's like some callbacks to lyrics of the other albums. I think Vor, there's like a lyric in there there's a lyric in here that like references that, and even the same melody and everything. So it's still very much like kind of ties into all that a little bit. And then also within itself, it ties, it's very progressive. In my opinion, Sleep Token's a progressive metal band. That's what I call them. They the first, especially the big notice that I saw in the first song, he says something about he says, "Will you halt this eclipse of me?" And he says that in the first line, and then it's also one of the ending lyrics in the last song. So there is that like kind of progressive kind of feel to it. So I do like that. And there's also in notes of the flow, there's also a couple tracks on here, the slower tracks. I feel maybe they could have been a little bit shorter, but they kind of felt like interlude tracks in the way they were. They were kind of repetitive, not in a negative way, just the way they were set up. It wasn't very like verse chorus. It was kind of like one like intentional flow. So they both felt like very much like interludes to me. So those were really interesting as well. Jordan, your thoughts on flow and direction?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Really not too much different to say on that, other than I feel like bringing it back around, kind of having like that full circle kind of thing is also kind of like a bigger kind of full circle thing, especially going and talking about the Eclipse line. There's also the song Past Self, where he's talking about, can't remember which song it was. I should have made a note. He's like mentioning like kind of like opposite things. Like he's calling himself one thing, but then like the next line he's calling himself something opposite. So it's kind of going to like the image of like an eclipse. You know, you have the bright moon, but it's getting overshadowed by something else. You know, something like that. And then it's also like just generally he's it seems like the whole album he's kind of like wrestling with himself and then like asking the god for like you know to come like help him and stuff, which goes back to the will you halt this eclipse in me and stuff like that. So you know just having everything kind of like put together like that just really makes it feel cohesive, you know, which I can't really say about that Our Last Night album, which you know
Yeah.
also tried to do the same kind of thing with like a whole story, but that they just didn't go deep enough into it and they didn't tie everything in.
Also, there was a line in one of the other songs. I can't remember which one it was. One of the singles. He says something that stops my head from fading to black. I feel like that's also a reference to an eclipse. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a so yeah. It's definitely like woven in it within itself. It's more of its own kind. It's more focused uh in itself than in like the big sleep token lore, but it still like has that connections to. That's cool too. All right, production I thought was great, especially the electronic production. Like I said, I've already mentioned like the different like types of electronics and synth that they used, and a lot of them stand out. There's even like it's one of the songs where there's this like sub bass, but the way it's like filtered and everything, it almost sounds like a hum, like a person humming. Like maybe it even is. Maybe they took like a vocal, one of the vocal like pads, and then like maybe like stretched it out and like octaved it down or something like that. But it's just like a really like interesting little thing that they did. You really have to listen to it, but just the fact that it's there, I thought was really fucking cool. So stuff like that. I will say, you know, the drum work is fantastic. Still, I love the fucking drummer. I will say, you know, we went and listened through, like, I was like skimming through some songs. There's definitely missing some of that raw production from like the first Sleep Token album that really makes the drums kind of stand out. It is a lot cleaner. I'm gonna take off for it, but something I'll note, you know, especially for the future. Uh, I wish the drums were a little bit more raw just to kind of give it that extra little punch, but you know, they're still there, they're still present, they're still strong. And you know, the patterns and everything are perfect too. It's just that slight production, but everything else, vocals very clean, especially like the different layering of the harmonies and stuff like that. Very well done. That's kind of a one of their strong points they've always had is Vessel's different like harmonies that he puts in, different like vocal layers that they layer on top of each other, and it like creates this big like kind of ominous chorusy feeling. Nothing much else to say. Just super strong production, Jordan.
Yeah, the production is great on this. There's a I noticed there's like a good feel of like airiness in it. And even like whenever the really loud, like heavy, low tuned guitars come in, like there's just like nice light a bit like amount of space in between everything. Like you have those loud guitars like right there in your face, but like you can still kind of hear the atmosphere around it, which I think is really good mixing and really good, you know, cutting out frequencies that clash with each other. Everything just sounds nice and clear. You can hear it. Um, there's also a couple little like production things that they did here and there, like one of them on the last song in the intro to Infinite Baths. There's kind of like a kind of like ambient kind of sound, but it's kind of like bouncing between the left and the right. So it's kind of like going back and forth, and it kind of gives that effect of like being surrounded by like big pools of water and stuff like that. So it really goes into that. You know, once again, just really wrapping around and having everything come back full circle, just from the lyrics to like the way everything's mixed to the instrumentation and the songwriting. It's all cohesive and put together, which is the best thing that you can ask for.
All right. So weak spots. I feel like I had a weak spot, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. Got it. Uh The fucking provider song. That's what it was. uh the very very sexy the sexy song. I found it was just a little bit weird, and I know I'm probably gonna get some Sleep Token fans up in here hating the shit out of me for this one. I just found it very kind of strange to have, there's like two or three songs literally calling out the weird fans. I guess he doesn't really specifically call out the ones that like sexualize the shit out of him. And I know they do play a little bit along with that, like on their in their stage performances and stuff. But he does, there are still some songs that mention a little bit of that weirdness, and so it was weird hearing those, and then going into a song that's extremely sexual, which is, hey, that's it. He can write that, and maybe it's specifically about a girl. Maybe he has a girl, and he wanted to write a song for her. But I know those weird fans are gonna take that and fucking run with it. And it was still a decent song. It was just like some of the lyrics were way on the nose. So I mean, I don't really want to take off for it. I just want to say that is the only weak spot for me. It was that one track. It's still not much of that's the only weak spot I can think of. Jordan, did you have any weak spots?
Probably the same one. It's just kind of weird to have everything be so planned out and like deliberate, and then kind of having that there. It's just kind of like with the lyrics being so on the nose and very like not poetic. Like it's just kind of like everything else is so poetic and like has so much meaning. I guess it's just kind of like weird to have such a straightforward kind of like just pop
Yeah,
R&B
he says
sexy song.
you've been hitting my phone so hard I found it in the ICU. Something like that.
Breathing through it too, yeah.
Yeah, is very very on the nose. That's my only weak spot. So
Yeah, really, that's it.
all right, track highlights. Let's see. I'll start with Look to Windward. First track, very very strong first track. I heard a lot of like comments on Twitter and stuff saying that the people that didn't like this said it was predictable, that it's pop intro, R&B, trap beat, white boy rapping, build up into breakdown, and then rinse and repeat. And honestly, I don't really get that in this, because especially in that first track, yes, it does the pop intro, and then it has like a breakdown riff and everything, but that's like the interlude to the track. Like that's the middle part, and then it goes into like this whole different type of like, so and then it goes into a heavier part at the end, so it's like more of a back and forth thing for me, that I don't really get the hate for that. So anyways, Look to Windward was just like a great way to start that and really kind of showcase how the album is going to sound, because that's basically a lot how it is. It's got a lot of back and forth, which the whole album is kind of about a duality, so maybe that's intentional. Past Self, that's the one that has the Final Fantasy Final Fantasy keys. That's also one that's like one of the more interlude type songs. That one doesn't go into a heavy part. I think I believe that one's just the keys through the whole song, but the way it's done, it's just very beautifully played. And also, I feel like maybe it's just me, the nerd in me. I feel like it's definitely a reference to Final Fantasy, because it sounds like a Final Fantasy keys, like a save point song. And then he also says, "I know it's not a game, it's your fantasy." It's like, come on. I don't know if he said final anywhere in that song, but I feel like it was there. Dangerous. I thought Dangerous was really interesting. That one, I think, is one of their only songs that has a guitar intro and guitar outro, though it is a clean guitar. It's like a pretty guitar. Most of their songs are more electronic focused or ominous, kind of like build up, not straight into guitar playing, and ends with a guitar playing. So I thought that was really interesting. And then even an Arcadia title track, I thought that one was a good one. Especially there's like one little point in there where he says this line. He says, "Have you been waiting long?" But like the way he screams it, or not screams, it's like a sing. It's like kind of like a Chester, like gravelly kind of, but not Chester. Like Chester has that kind of like a higher kind of pitch. He goes like lower with it. And it was just like a really kind of like powerful moment. I thought was really fucking cool. And then the last track, I didn't write down the song of that one, the song title of that one, but the way that it just built up and had that really huge breakdown. They've also never really had an album that ended on a breakdown. And when I say breakdown, I mean it was a fucking heavy breakdown. And the way he's like screams this one line is like really fucking high pitched and like, oh, it was so strong. Great way to end the fucking album. And also Gethsemane. That's the one that had like Midwest emo type riff, Bill Murray type riff, Swancore type riff. It was like a mixture of those three. So that was a really surprising thing too. So just adding even more genres to their like repertoire, their armory, I thought was really cool. So maybe on their next album, they could just start even blending like all of that shit all together along with the pop stuff. Would be like even bigger instead of just the one song. So Jordan, track highlights.
Yeah, I have Dangerous, I have Caramel. I like the chorus on that one. Also, the heavy part on that one was really cool. That one stuck with me when I first heard it. Gethsemane, that one, I like the kind of like math rocky little kind of tinge of Midwest emo on that with the guitars. And then I have the last one, Infinite Baths. That one had the like cool intro where it was kind of like switching between the left and the right with kind of like the build up, and then just really like a whole build up until that like last part right there. Really good, strong ender. Like probably their best breakdown, maybe. I don't know.
It's definitely, I would want to say they're their heaviest. Especially like even vocally, that was probably the heaviest I've ever heard them go. So
Yeah, those vocals were nasty. I wish the vocals were a little bit higher on that one on that part.
They do that. That's like their mark. To be honest, every time there's screaming vocals, they're kind of like lo-fied out and kind of like layered in a way. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wish they would have brought that up a little bit more. That would have been like so powerful. But yeah, that's all my highlights.
All right. That's it. So rating wise, what would you rate this?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I don't like it as much as Take Me Back to Eden, I don't think. But this one consistently just has like more, I just guess, real feeling moments and more personal moments, which I like. Just because it's different than a lot of their stuff, and just the way that the lyrics fit into everything and all the like little nods to all the like different other albums and different songs, and like just all that together is really nice.
There's so much to like take in and so many nuances and stuff. I'm definitely gonna have to listen to this more and back to back. So I don't know. I might want to say 9 out of 10 as well. I don't know. It's either a 9 or a 10. I really don't know. Is that not? We don't do decimals here, or I would say 9.5. So I'm really kind of stuck here. But I mean, like I said, I loved listening to this. There was barely any negatives. But I thought this was definitely very strong. Some great moments here. Yeah. So if you're on YouTube, I'm sure you've already listened to it. Let me know your rating and your thoughts in the comments. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. Don't forget to come by our live streams that we do every Friday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time here on Twitch, twitch.tv/oldheadmikeshow. We listen to new albums every week. Yeah, and that's about it. Old Head Mike signing off, reminding you, never too old for this.